know this concept, but I don't want to skip over it in case there is something that you don't know yet. So excuse this picture. It's not all beautiful, but it's really useful. So for this one, you can ignore the rule because it's in Afrikaans, and I'm going to explain this to you in English in the following topic. So for now, we just ignore this and we focus on the present tense and the past and the future. So this is just like a nice reminder sheet. And if all of you guys are from the Telegram group, I believe this would have been posted there. So it's a nice reminder of how things change, and it goes up to the wand or dawn rule, okay, depending on what you learned at school. I usually teach wand, and I'll explain that when we get to past tense, but I just want to run through these just as a, you know, wake up our brains. So, ek bel iemand, I phone someone. Ek het iemand gebel, ek sal iemand bel. Nice basic sentence, the first one we all learn, right? Okay, ek skakel my phone aan. Ek het my phone aangeskakel. Of course, it's one word, because when we join a preposition and a verb together, let me just let someone in. When we join a preposition and a verb together, they become one word. It's called a skybare werkwoord. Okay, ek het my phone aangeskakel. In future, it would be ek sal my phone aanskakel. Obviously, we don't have a ga because that's for past tense. Okay, ek gebruik my phone. So this is the third rule. This is, so for instance, in past tense, this would be the begge, had, ervaar, ontmis rule, that one. But it's just showing you how it changes in each tense. So ek gebruik baie my phone. Ek het my phone baie gebruik. Ek sal my phone baie gebruik. Okay, and then the fourth one, this isn't too important for future, but it is obviously for past. Ek sit en bel my vriend. Ek het my vriend gesit en bel. That's past tense, and we'll find out why it changes like that in the next slides. And then ek sal my vriend sit en bel. So we're always moving our verbs to the end. Okay, ek sing en eet gedurende pauze. So I sing and eat during break. Ek het gedurende pauze gesing en geëet. Ek sal gedurende pauze sing en eet. Ek sien die man bel. This rule, generally, I've noticed when I do the past tense of this rule, I don't think I've ever come across anyone that actually knew it. But we'll see, because there are some distinction students among us. So we'll see. Okay, ek sien die man bel. Ek het die man sien bel. Okay. Ek sal die man sien bel. We're going to discuss why that's the case in past tense. And then ek bel om contact te maak. This is infinitive, everyone's favorite, when they test us on infinitive and tense at the same time. So ek bel om contact te maak. Ek het gebel om contact te gemaak het. We know that after the om, we're allowed to leave it in that tense too. Okay, ek sal bel om contact te maak. And then for your helping verbs or auxiliary verbs, depending what you've learned to call them, wil, kan, moet, sal, is. Mag is also missing there. Ek wil iemand bel. In past would be ek wou iemand bel. And in future, ek sal iemand wil bel. Okay, will is a helping verb, therefore it's going to go to the end before the main verb. Okay, that is a little mistake that I noticed many people make. They don't, when they move their verbs to the end, they sometimes want to move the helping verb straight to the end, but it's supposed to be at the end before your main verb. Just think of it as it's not quite as much of a verb, it's just a helping verb. Okay, then ek is mal oor my phone. Ek was mal oor my phone. Ek sal mal oor my phone wees. Okay, and then the second last one, ek het 'n phone, ek het 'n phone gehad. This is het as the possessive. So there's two times that we would find a het, either in past tense, generally, or if you have something possessive. Okay, so ek het 'n phone, ek het 'n phone gehad, ek sal 'n phone hê. For future tense, the only ones we have to worry about is literally is becomes wees in the future, and het will become sal hê in the future. Those are the only tricky ones for future, nothing else. Okay, and then the last one here is on this sheet, it's the dawn rule. In my rules, it's the wand rule. Okay, it depends where, like which school you go, which province you're from, who taught you, but it's the same thing. I'll tell you when we get to the past tense rules why I used want. Okay, so this is just an example of it. If you have done, as, wanneer, and no, in the past tense, they all become to. Okay, in future, you're going to keep the same. So, ek bel nou, ek het toegebel, ek sal nou bel. Nothing there changes. Okay, I hope that's a good refresher for you guys. I'm just going to go to the Verlede Tyd Rules. Okay, so it all depends on your teacher, but I've got 9 rules for Verlede Tyd. And okay, so the first one is the basic one that we've all learned since grade 3, 4, depending on your school. So if there's just a regular verb, we use het. So we put het, whatever we start with, the verb comes next, right? So in past tense, our first verb will be het. Okay, straight after whatever you start the sentence with. Not meaning the second word, it just means the second thing. So it could be the man with the blue shirt. And that's a bunch of words, but the next thing will have to be the verb. Okay, so if there's just a regular verb, we use het. Straight after whatever you start the sentence with, whatever you start with, the verb comes next. And het and is are verbs. Move your verb to the end with a ga. So example, ek praat met my maats. Ek het met my maats gepraat. Gister het ek met my maats gepraat. So they started with a time word here, just to show you that whatever they started with, you still have to put that het next. Okay, and then there's a little tip here. Do not put the subject next to the adverb of time. So a bad habit that a lot of students do, because they want to translate directly, and I get it, is they'll say, they'll put gister ek het. So they'll want to put the pronoun or whatever, or the name after the time word. Don't. We always put the verb next. Okay, so it doesn't matter what we start with, that comes next. Okay, rule number 2. If the verb begins with the following 12 syllables, so most of us, I think, learn begge, her, ver, ont, mis, those 7. And those get drilled into our heads, but somewhere these other 5 just kind of get forgotten. So I don't even know if get forgotten is appropriate to say in English. Sorry about that. Okay, so if the verb begins with the following 12 syllables, we add het, and we still move the verb to the end, but we do not add a ga. Okay, so you have to study these. I know you guys will probably know many of them. Like obviously ge is the most obvious one, because you're not going to say ge gesels, right? But begge, her, ver, ont, mis. That's the way I studied it, because it sounded like a little rhyme. And then weer, vol, onder, voor, and oor. So if the first syllable of a word is that, you're not going to add a ga. Okay, examples of words with some of these is like begin, gesels, herken, erken, ervaar, ontmoet, verstaan, misbruik, oorlaai, weergalm, ondersteun. And the best thing to do is to practice. So practice as much as you can. For the grade 12s, you have an enormous amount of past papers with, And grade 11s, you can use the grade 12 past papers. It's exactly the same standard of work in TOL. So what you can do is just go take past papers and just practice them as much as you can, and then mark yourself. Okay, and then if you don't know why, you take your study guide and you go to the rules and you try see why. Or you can text me and say, ma'am, I did this, why is this wrong? Or why is it right? Okay, examples here. You can't say ek het met my ma gesels. It sounds atrocious, but the same thing applies to the others. Okay, so ek gesels met my maats. Ek het met my maats gesels. Gister het ek met my maats gesels. Okay, and with language, practice makes perfect. Okay, rule 3. If there's a helping verb, so a hulpwerkwoord or an auxiliary verb, only the first verb changes, nothing else. This is the best one. It's so easy. So is would become was, wil becomes wou, sal becomes so, moet becomes moes, and kan becomes kon. Then there's a little controversial one called mag. It used to be mag, changes to moch. Then I saw another sheet where it just stays mag. So they won't test you with mag for past tense. But if they do, move it to the verb before the main verb. To the end before the main verb. So ek moet die bal skop. Ek moes die bal skop. Verlede jaar moes ek die bal skop. Or ek is die slimste mens in die hele wêreld. Simply, ek was die slimste mens in die hele wêreld. That's it. Okay, rule 4. So remember earlier we said that there's het we can find on 2 occasions. 1, if the sentence is past tense, or 2, when we possess something. So I have something. So this rule number 4 is when you have something. So if the verb has a het at the beginning with no ge at the end, or no past tense verb at the end, it means you have something. So you only add gehad at the end. And gehad's easy to remember because it's like had, right? So ek het baie boeke, ek het baie boeke gehad. Okay, you make it past by adding gehad at the end, no other change. And the easy way to spot it is there's no verb at the end of the sentence. Okay, I did pull out some example sentences for us, and you guys are welcome to send me some as well when we're done with the rules. Okay, then rule 5. So this is the one when we have 2 verbs happening at the same time. So they're separated by the word en. Okay, so for this rule, it has to be 2 verbs and they have to be separated by the word en. Okay, so if there are 2 verbs connected by the word en and happening at the same time, this means they have to be able to happen at the same time. Okay, like you can sit and read. Okay, we add het and only the first verb gets a ge. So think of them as like being friends, and they can share a ge because they're friends. Okay, ek sit en lees, ek het gesit en lees. And then don't confuse this rule with the next one. So rule 6 is if we have 2 verbs connected by the word en and they cannot happen at the same time. Okay, often people want to debate with teachers about if they can or can't happen at the same time. Some are debatable, but if they're going to be testing you, it will be obvious whether you can or can't do them. So ons eet and swim, so they each get their own ge. So ons eet and swim, you can't physically eat a sandwich and swim with your arms at the same time. Like you'd have to be super talented. So you can maybe lie in the water or stand in the water and eat, but you cannot swim and eat at the same time. So ons eet en swem, ons het geëet en geswem. Or ons werk en swem, ons het gewerk en geswem. Okay, we cannot sleep and work at the same time, surely, unless your job is to be a professional sleeper. So we're just adding a place in here just to explain it. So ek slaap en werk in die sitkamer. So I sleep and I work in the lounge, right? So ek het in die sitkamer geslaap en gewerk. Or ek het gister in die sitkamer geslaap en gewerk. Okay. This one is the one that I've come across that most people don't know. So I'd actually love to, if you guys could tell me I knew that or I didn't know. I would love to know. Okay, so for rule 7, this is a memorized one until you know it off by heart. And I've put the English in brackets next to it for you. So if there are 2 verbs with no en connecting them, so there are 2 verbs in the sentence, but they're not separated by the word en, and verb 1. So the first verb is one of the following. Gaan, laat, begin, voel, hoor, sien, durf, or probeer. Okay, then both verbs need to move to the end and neither one gets a ge. So I'm going to do a few examples of these. So ek hoor my ma skree, ek het my ma hoor skree. Ons begin eet, ons het begin eet. Or ons probeer TV kyk, ons het TV probeer kyk. Okay. Okay, so that literally only applies if there are 2 of them and they're not separated by en. So I hope that was useful, and I actually did put here what they mean in English in case. So gaan is go, laat is let or allow, begin is obviously to begin or to start, voel is to feel, hoor is to hear, sien is to see, durf is to dare, probeer is to try. Okay, and then number 8 of 9. Number 8 is skybare werkwoorde. So this is such an easy concept if someone's just if you've gone through it and studied it once, you're sorted. So we're nice and early in May, so definitely worth the investment of time to just study. I believe I've also shared on the Telegram groups. Okay, so if verbs are skabare werkwoorde, or if there's a verb and a preposition, they become one word in the past tense. And they still, you still put the ge before the verb. So preposition, then ge, then verb. So ek gooi die papier weg. Ek het die papier weggegooi. And if you write this correctly, but it's not, like if you put a gap between weg and gegooi, it's incorrect. Or they'll give you half mark. Okay, verlede week het ek die papier weggegooi. Ek trek my skoene uit. Ek het my skoene uitgetrek. Gisteraand het ek my skoene uitgetrek. My examples here, I happen to use prepositions, but there are some less obvious ones. These are obvious ones. I've made a list. I actually probably posted a long, decent list and the tricky ones on the Telegram groups, but these are just the easier ones. So trek on, you would have words in between you, like ek trek my skoene aan. Ek sal my skoene aantrek. So it always becomes one word in future and in past. Gister het ek my skoene aangetrek. Or let me pick another one. Mark 2, this one is a popular one. So mark die deur toe, or ek gaan die deur toe, or to mark, right? Or ek het die deur toe gemaak. Okay, so it's easy when it's with a preposition once you've gone through this a few times. Okay, then these are less obvious ones. What was that birthday one? Gelukwens. So I have lists of, like, just a small little list with less obvious ones, like wishing someone for their birthday. Gelukwens, that's also one. Okay, so neem deel, deel neem, deel geneem. Neem weg, wegneem, weggeneem. Gooi weg, weggooi, weggegooi. Haal aan, aanhaal, aangehaal. I'm sure you guys have seen that one a bunch. Trek uit, uittrek, uitgetrek. Spoor op, opspoor, opgespoor. Tel op. Well, these are more obvious because you can see, and weg counts as a preposition. Okay, so if anyone needs a proper list of those and you can't find them, you literally just go into the Telegram group and then go into the media or the documents that have been posted, and it will be there. Okay, and then the last one, I did this as the wand rule, and the reason I do it as wand as opposed to dawn is because it's easier for me to remember the first two are group 3 conjunctions and the second 2 are group 2 conjunctions. So we all know that when we do conjunctions, question words are all group 3 conjunctions, right? So then it's also easy to remember that wanneer is group 3. And then you know that all your D words except for dat are group 2. So that's how I also remember. Okay, so all 4 of these words change to 2 in the past tense. They apply either rule 2 or 3 conjunction word order. So we've inserted the group rule to follow next to the word in the heading. So just these little numbers here, just so you understand what that's for. So ek swem nou, ek het toe geswem, gister het ek toe geswem. As silly as it sounds, that's the rule. Ek staan op en dan was ek my gesig. Ek het opgestaan en toe was ek my gesig. Okay, the reason, so done is group 2, therefore we change the word done to 2, and the verb has to go straight after it. Okay, that's what we mean when we care about which group conjunction it is. Okay, and then gister het ek opgestaan en toe het ek my gesig gewas. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so that's the last one for that. And then I just want to get through the, if we can, I would love to do some practice sentences if you guys want. And then I've got some active and passive. I'm not sure if any of you were here in the beginning of the year, but I touched on this as well. So Lydende and Bedrywende is all fun. So for the IEB kids, you guys get tested on these. They'll mix it. So they'll not only just test you on Verlede Tyd, they'll give you a sentence and you have to know Oh, they want me to do verlede tyd, and they also want me to apply my rule from conjunctions. Oh, and they want me to do active and passive. Like, they just mix things. Okay, so what is Lydende and Bedrywende Vorm? In the Bedrywende Vorm, it's the active voice. So we start with the sentence with the subject, so the onderwerp. The subject is performing an action to the object. Okay, in the Lydende Vorm, we start a sentence with the object that the action is happening to. I think most of you at your grade would have to know how to do both, change one to the other and vice versa. So we have 3 tenses in Afrikaans, and we use a set of words and a simple recipe for changing the sentences from bedrywende active to lydende or passive. Okay, so pronouns also definitely need to be changed in here, and you can apply English logic, which is nice. You can do that in direct and also in Lydende and Bedrywende. So we also need to consider our pronouns to ensure the meaning of the sentence remains the same. So if the subject is a pronoun, we change it as follows. So subject, ek, will change to deur my. So for instance, ek skop die bal would be die bal word deur my geskop. Okay, jy skop die bal word deur jou geskop. Hy skop die bal word deur hom geskop. Sy skop die bal word deur haar geskop. Hope that makes sense. For anyone that doesn't know this, maybe just take a picture. I'm just going to give it like 4 seconds just so you can take a picture. Okay. Next one. Oops. Adverbs of time and manner. Okay, time and manner can be inserted between word and deur. So this is one thing that people often forget. So time and manner, some people, you know, the one time, literally from a school, there was a book that said you can insert time, manner, and place between word and deur, is and deur, or sal and deur. And then the next year, the print was, no, you cannot. So from the beginning, just know, well, some of you are matric, so it's not the beginning, time and manner in that order. In the Stompie order, you can put time and then manner, so the day and then how they're doing it. Can be inserted in that order between word and deur, sal and deur, or is and deur. Okay, so here's a present tense example. So for present tense, we use word deur, and we still geverb. These all get geverb unless they're one of those begin, her, ver, ontmis, weer, those words that we did in verlede tyd. Okay, die seun eet sy kos. Sy kos word deur die seun geëet. We don't want to repeat die seun, so we're going to start with the object. Okay, and then it gets moved there. So sy kos word deur die seun geëet. Hy hou haar hand vas. Haar hand word deur hom vasgehou. Okay, and then die boek word deur haar gelees. If we have to change it, it would be sy lees die boek. Okay, is this clear to everyone? Just type to me in the chat. I just want to know if it's clear, if it's obvious. If anyone is not clear with it, just send me a message. Okay, I can always go back if we need. Okay, future tense, toekomende tyd. So for future tense, toekomende tyd, we use sal deur. Okay, so sal deur and geverb, but for this one we add word at the end. Okay, die seun sal sy kos eet. Sy kos sal deur die seun geëet word. Okay. Worst case, you could also say sy kos sal deur hom geëet word, but I wanted to use die seun again because it's less confusing because it's right there. Okay, and then hy sal haar hand vashou. Haar hand sal deur hom vasgehou word. Die boek sal deur haar gelees word. Sy sal die boek lees. Okay, so I just wanted to do it the other way around at the end. I hope that's clear and simple. Okay, verlede tyd. So this one, because of the sometimes confuses people, but this is when we use is in past tense. Okay, so in Lydende en Bedrywende is will be past tense. So is deur is past tense. So die seun het sy kos geëet. Sy kos is deur die seun geëet. Or you can say sy kos is deur hom geëet. Okay, I like to keep it as close to the sentence as possible to make it like just to guarantee the marks. Hy het haar hand vasgehou. Haar hand is deur hom vasgehou. Okay, and then die boek is deur haar gelees. Sy het die boek gelees. Hope that makes sense. Obviously, send me a message if anyone is stuck. Okay, hulpwerkwoorde. This is the best little one, and it's always hidden like somewhere in some dark little corner, but it's so helpful to know this. When we have hulpwerkwoorde or auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, like kan, moet, wil, mag, we follow the future tense process. Okay, and then we keep the same helping verb. So sy kan die werk doen. Die werk kan deur haar gedoen word. Or hy mag die koek eet. Die koek mag deur hom geëet word. Let's use another one. Wil, ek wil my kos eet. Die kos wil deur haar geëet word. Okay. If there's no object in the sentence, we use daar. Okay. So die man sing, but there's no object. So daar word gesing. Die mense baljaar, daar word baljaar. Almal beklei, daar word beklei. Almal studeer, daar word studeer. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Does anyone have any questions, especially for those last two? Anything that didn't make sense? Anything? Anything at all? Okay, so if there's no questions and you guys are good with that, I'm actually going to leave that open in case we need to refer back to it. Would you guys vote for me? Would you want to practice a few active and passive, and then we'll do the first 5, you can write them down and then I'll mark them with you. And same for Verlede. Let me just read these questions. Could you explain auxiliary verbs again? Sure. Of course. Okay, so for the helping verb or auxiliary verbs, right? We treat it as we're going to keep the same word that they gave us. So these words, it will be the same, but we are going to use the recipe that we would use for future tense. For instance, let me pick kan. So sy kan die werk doen. Die werk kan, do you see how we kept the kan? Deur haar gedoen word. Because you know in future tense we add ge verb and then we add word at the end. So that's future tense. So for helping verbs, you're going to treat it exactly the same. Let's see if I can find some examples of this quick. Then I can show you. This is verlede tyd, yes, future, where's future? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's all sal. So let's see if I can find you one quickly. No, I cannot. Let me just read this question. It says, is sal also an auxiliary verb? Exactly. Sal is also an auxiliary verb. So essentially, if you guys look at this to meditate exercise here, let me zoom in for you. If you look at these examples, do you see how it says sal over here? Okay, we've got sal there. This might as well be kan, it can be mag, it can be any one of those helping verbs that we saw. Okay, those. So my broer sal die motorfiets koop. Die motorfiets sal deur my broer verkoop word. Okay. And the reason there's no ge is because ver. Because of this part of the syllable. Because the syllable is one of the ones that we learned in past tense that does not get a G. Okay, hy sal die boek môre, there we've got a time word, huis toe bring om oorgetrek te word. This is a nice one because now we have an infinitive. So hy sal, oh wait, sorry, die boek sal môre deur hom huis toe gebring word om oorgetrek te word. Because om oorgetrek te word is the infinitive, we're going to have our verb over ja at the end of the sentence, and we still have our infinitive right at the end. Okay, jy sal nie die program kyk nie. Die program sal nie deur jou gekyk word nie. Does that all make sense? Text me if it does not. I'm going to do the past tense ones for us. Okay, I just want to check if there's any questions. No questions. Okay, 1. Sy het die wedstryd vandag gespeel. So for lydende vorm in the verlede tyd, we are, I just want to highlight this so you can see. For verlydende in the verlede tyd, we use is deur. Okay, so sy het die wedstryd vandag gespeel. Check how they gave us vandag, and that would be a time word, so we know that's going to go between is and deur. So sy het die wedstryd vandag gespeel. So die wedstryd is vandag deur haar gespeel. Okay, number 2. Die meisie het die medisyne gedrink om beter te voel. There we've got an infinitive, so we know that's going to get chucked to the end, and the rest of our process is going to happen to this part first. Okay, so die meisie het die medisyne gedrink. So die medisyne is deur die meisie gedrink om beter te voel. Okay, number 3. Ek het die kos gister stadig in die kombuis geëet. So this one's lovely because they gave us, it's great practice because they gave us gister as a time word and stadig means slowly, so they gave us a nice manner. So now we get to put both of them between is and deur. So we have to remember the order of stompie, so T before O, right? And O before M. Okay, so move, yeah, it even says, move the adverbs of time and manner, if any, before the deur and subject. I just want to read this question. Ma'am, when do we change some time words like môre to volgende dag? That would be in direct and indirect. So for direct and indirect speech, then we would change things like môre. I can try run through that with you guys quick after this. Okay, so which one was I busy with? This one. Ek het die kos gister stadig in die kombuis geëet. So die kos is gister stadig deur my, what am I saying? Die kos is gister stadig deur my in die kombuis geëet. Let me just type it out because I feel like I'm getting confused. Die kos is is gister stadig, yeah, exactly like I said. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to do it verbally. Okay, and then number 4, my ma het nie die boek vandag gelees nie. So die boek is nie vandag deur my ma gelees nie. And then die loodgieter is a plumber, het die pyp herstel. Check how they deliberately are giving you words that you do not put a g in front of, like her. They give you deliberate words that you learned in past tense don't get a g. So die pyp is deur die loodgieter herstel. Okay, simple. And then I'll do these present tense ones quickly, and then I have time to go through direct and indirect with you if you want. Okay, die man slaan die hond. So die hond word deur die man geslaan. Die meisie skryf nie 'n brief nie. 'n brief word nie deur die meisie geskryf nie. So now they're doing negative and active and passive. I'm also happy, I should probably share this document on the Telegram groups. I think it's useful. Hy skakel die lig aan. So check how in this one we have a preposition and a verb working together. Right? So we have a skybare werkwoord. So die lig word deur hom aangeskakel. So remember that in past tense, we learned that aangeskakel when they get added together with a ge. So that's how we know what to do. Yeah. And then ek eet die kos vinnig. Die kos word vinnig deur my geëet. And then slaan die bal. Die bal moet geslaan word. Okay. Are you guys happy for me to quickly go through the direct and indirect with you, just because then you get like a lot of value out of your session. Okay, I just want to read this comment. Yes, please. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to ignore this, that. Okay, so direct and indirect. Okay, so what is direkte and indirekte rede? So direkte rede is someone's direct word, so like a dialogue. So when I say to you, hello, eat your food. Okay, that's direct speech. Indirect or indirekte rede is when someone's direct words are reported or repeated at a later stage. It could be 10 minutes later, it could be 6 months later, it could be 50 years later. Okay, we need to be able to change sentences from direkte to indirekte and vice versa. So they could give you indirekte and tell you to change it to direkte as well. Most likely they will ask you to do both. Okay, we will need to pay attention to punctuation, leestekens, because those are clues for us. What it ends in is a clue for us what we need, like in telling us what we need to use. Okay, and then our rules depend on the type of sentence, which is determined by the punctuation. So if it ends in a full stop, we know it's a statement sentence. Okay, so we'd know sê dat. Okay, we'll need to know the meaning of our Afrikaans pronouns and change them into each sentence. The conjunctions dat and of are group 3. Okay, those are the two that we use for statements and question sentences. So knowing that dat and of on group 3 helps us know that we need to move our verbs to the end, because that's what we would be doing in conjunctions, right? With voegwoorde, we'd be moving group 3 sentences, we'd be moving the verbs to the end. Therefore, our verbs move to the end of the sentence. Pay attention to the tense. Okay. So for this one, I don't know if you want to take a picture, the changes to pronouns in direkte to indirekte. So ek would become say or hey, right? And then I put there what it is in English. So like if I said, ek hou van roomys, or Nolien sê ek hou van roomys, it would become, so I said, Nolien says, I like ice cream. It would become Nolien says that she likes ice cream. So that's what this is. Ek as the subject changes to say or hey. Okay, whether it's a boy or girl. I know everyone's going on about other pronouns, but I don't know what other pronouns to use. Okay, and then jy would change to say of hey. Yo would become haar of hom. Julle would become hulle. Okay, people tend to make mistakes on these, and it's just practice. So everyone learns differently. Like if you had to give me this list, I would not be able to study it. It's too hard. I need it in sentences, and I learn better from examples. So therefore, I would rather have example sentences, and I'd highlight the pronouns, and I would ask myself in English, what does it mean? So I can keep the same meaning. Okay, and then ons changes to hulle, and then myne would be hare or syne. Jone is hare or syne. Ons sin changes to hulle sin, so like ours would become theirs. Okay, julle sin is hulle sin, so yours plural, as in this is your house, would become theirs. So e is used for formal communication. I don't know if you guys have seen that. If you do a formal writing task, you have to use e. You're not allowed to say yay or yo. So that is, you would change it above as if it is ek or julle. I just want to read the comment. Does sin stand for S in ours? Does sin stand for the S in ours? Let me go see. On sin. Listen. No. So I don't think so. It's just But yeah, view it that way if you want. If that's a way for you to remember it, then you're welcome to view it that way, if that makes sense. Okay, so E, yeah, will be replaced by, would be like ak, or like you as in yo, like formal. Okay, and then study the list and practice changing them, apply English logic. So definitely something to study. Okay, and I hope everyone has that study guide, the blue and yellow one. It's very helpful. Okay, certain words need to change when we change sentences to Indirekte Rede to ensure we keep the same meaning. So this is what one of you guys asked this question. So for example, vandaag cannot remain vandaag for the next 20 years. It needs to become daardie dag to keep the same meaning. So for instance, if I said Noli or Tim sê, dit is vandag my verjaarsdag. Okay, and then 5 years later, I'm like, yeah, he went around telling everyone it was his birthday. I would say, Tim het daardie dag vir almal vertel dis sy verjaarsdag. Do you see? We have to say daardie dag. He was telling everyone that day that it was his birthday. Because if I said he was telling everyone today, someone would be like, today. Do you understand? So that's why we change those words. Okay, these words need to be changed back should we put a sentence from indirecte to directe. So look out for them. So that is a list you have to study. It is right here, but I'm sure all of you have it from school. Additionally, it is in the blue and yellow study guide. So vandaag changes to daardie dag. And if you have daardie dag and you're changing it back, you change it to vandag. Vanjaar is daardie jaar. Gister, die vorige, die vorige dag. Eergister, 2 dae tevore. Môre, die volgende dag. Oormôre, oor 2 dae. No or done changes to. That's quite familiar from past tense, right? Hier changes to daar. Hiernatoe, daarnatoe. Hierdie, daardie. Hierheen, daarheen. So that makes it easier, right? And then gisteraand, die vorige aand. Môre aand, die volgende aand. And then they can add aand or oggend or middag, etc. to môre or gister. And it's the same change. Okay. Hope everyone can manage to take a picture. Okay, the next one. Hope that word. So helping verbs. Will. So yeah, I put the helping verb and I put its past tense. Okay, the past tenses are on the right and the present or whatever is on the left. So wil, kan, moet, sal, is, was, mag, kon, wou, moes, so. Helping verbs are inserted at the end of the sentence just before the main verb. Okay, here's an example. Ben sê, ek wil by die skool slaap. Ben sê dat hy by die skool wil slaap. We're using dat because it's a statement sentence. So whenever we have say, we're going to use dat and we're going to move our verb to the end. Helping verbs get moved to the end before the main verb because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a helping verb. It's not a main verb. Mag. So someone asked, when is mag used? Mag is used as may. So generally, if you asked a question in a very polite way, I think the next example should have that. Mag is used as that, or it just means the word may. So it can be used in many different examples. Okay, so a stelson. So this is where we actually start the rules. That's all the additional information. A stelson is a statement sentence. Okay, so it's identified by a full stop at the end. That's why we have to pay attention to punctuation when we're doing this. So first thing, you're like, what type of sentence is this? Then you know what rule to apply. We use group 3 conjunction dat. Okay, that is a group 3 conjunction. Therefore, the verb gets moved to the end. If we have a helping verb, it gets chucked to the end before the main verb. Okay, we remove the direct speech quotation. So you're going to take it out of its dialogue punctuation. Okay, so that's the double punt gone and the aanhalingstekens gone. Okay, we change the pronouns. For example, ek would become hy or sy. Okay, so here's examples of the stelson. Johan sê, ek is baie dors. Johan sê dat hy baie dors is. See, inserted dat and we move the is to the end because that's the verb. Okay, and if you're confused about which one's the verb, remember our golden rule for Stompie. Whatever we start with, the verb comes next. So you'll take that verb from the beginning, chuck it to the end. Okay, Nadia sê, my boek is hopeloos te vervelig. Nadia sê dat haar boek hopeloos te vervelig is. Benjamin sê, ons ry Kaap toe. Benjamin sê dat hulle Kaap toe ry. Okay, that's full statements. I hope that makes sense. Vraagsin. Okay, so question sentence. This is identified by a question mark at the end, right? We use group 3 conjunction of, which is if. Okay, so he asks if he may have cold drink. Okay, we remove the direct speech punctuation and we change the pronouns from ek to become hy or sy. Here's our examples. Die meisie vra, kan ek loop? Die meisie vra of sy kan loop. Die meisie het gevra of sy kon loop. So I added the past tense ones just to help a bit more. Ma vra, Pieter, is jy honger? Ma vra vir Pieter of hy honger is. Ma het Pieter gevra of hy honger is. Jacob, okay, so this is when we have a question word. We keep that same question word. So Jacob vra, wanneer moet ek leer? Jacob vra wanneer hy moet leer. Okay, and then for the person asking about mag, Nikita vra, mag ek eerste praat? So Nikita asks, may I speak first? Nikita vra of sy eerste mag praat. Check mag helping verb to the end before the main verb. Okay, hope that makes sense. Any questions there? Okay, exclamation sentence. So this is exclamations. So exclamatory. So obviously this is going to end in a exclamation mark, but there's an exclamation mark, but there's 2 types of sentences that could. Okay, so in this, well, in different types of sentences, but also in this topic. Okay, so tussenwerpsels or interjections. So for example, hurrah, eina, ach nee, are only allowed to be used in direct speech. So we cannot leave it out of the indirect sentence. So we need to express it using words. Okay, so I made a list, a little list of the common ones. So a list of common tussenwerpsels or interjections. Hurrah, you would replace with skree met blydskap. Or eina, you'd say skree van pyn. Ach nee, ach, met teleurstelling. So that's with disappointment. Or foei tog or sis tog is with met sympathie. So with sympathy. For IEB students, you would probably be seeing this in your communicatie. I do think CAPS, they definitely would, there's a chance they would use this in direct, indirect. So definitely worth taking a picture of this. Okay, liewe hemel is met verbasing, genade is met opgewondenheid, but every school gives you like a list to study. Yippie met opgewondenheid, those are big words. Boch, which I've literally never seen, but I came across it in a few lists, so I had to include it in case. Met ontevredenheid, so this is when you're not satisfied. Uitsa met bewondering, sis met afkeer, it's disapproval, and then shu is when you're surprised or verbaas. Okay, here's the examples. Die vrou sê, hoera, dit is my verjaarsdag. Die vrou sê met blydskap. So instead of saying hoera, we're saying met blydskap. Dat dit haar verjaardag is. Okay, Willem sê, sies tog, die hond het nie 'n baas nie. Willem sê met simpatie dat die hond nie 'n baas het nie. Okay, Nadia sê, eina, ek het my toon gestamp. Nadia sê van pyn dat sy haar toon gestamp het. We're still moving those verbs to the end. Everything remains the same. We're just replacing this interjection with what it actually means. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Bevelsin is a command sentence. This is the next one. It usually starts on a verb and ends on an exclamation mark. So that's how you can identify it when you're doing your, what are they called? Your summaries as well. When often the CAPS kids, they'll give you they'll ask you to summarize 7 tips for something. Generally, if someone gives you a tip, they're going to start with brush your teeth every day. Brush. Start on a verb. Does that make sense? So that's how you can also find the examples of the commands in your texts. Okay, pa sê, kinders doen julle taak. Pa sê dat die kinders hulle taak moet doen. Or Oma beveel, sit julle skottelgoed in die wasbak. Oma beveel hulle om hulle skottelgoed in die wasbak te sit. So you can choose if you want to do the dat or not the dat. Personally, this is the method I prefer, the dat one, and that's because if I use my dat, I know my verb gets chucked to the end. And if I have a helping verb, I'm going to put it at the end before the main verb. Cool. Any questions? That's more than I had planned for this evening, but any questions? Can I answer anything you need help with? So I'm going to just stop recording now.